Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neil Haley Show. My guest today is Grace Lynx Jenkins, best-selling author of Sight. How are you, Grace? And we're going to kind of respond to what TikTok had to say about your topic and respond as a Gen Zer. What are your thoughts from this response?
Hey, well, thank you. I'm doing very well. So I noticed that one thing that had been posted on my account was me talking about morality and my faith. And honestly, like I said, I really don't care what you believe. You can believe whatever, and I'm fine with you. I just don't like it when people are hateful or trying to push their opinions onto others. I noticed that I got quite a bit of a backlash on there. A lot of people were mad because they knew exactly that I was a Christian. They had figured it out just from what we have been talking about alone on that little short, and they were blowing up that comment section. I was sitting there going, "Oh dear, oh wow, what have we created? What have we done?"
And so when you hear this response, what are the responses that you're just like, too bad when you hear this?
Well, a lot of times what I was seeing was people were going on there and saying, "Well, why don't you admit that your faith is subjective, that your opinions are subjective?" And I'm going, well, according to my viewpoint, according to my faith, it's not that I don't want to, agree or anything. It's just that within the Christian faith, that's something that is just part of the faith. We have to say that there is an objective morality. On top of that, one thing that really stood out to me were people saying that, well, we're just animals. And they started to use the evolutionary psychology argument. That was a big thing. My response to evolutionary psychology, as somebody who does have a master's in psychology, is that you cannot use that alone to explain human behavior. First of all, the soft sciences, such as psychology, there's a lot of nuances. Studies cannot be replicated, mainly because it's just so hard to replicate human behavior. You also get into, with evolutionary psychology, that tends to be what leads to eugenics and what leads to sexism, oddly enough, because if you think about it, if we're just animals, then the only purpose for us is to reproduce. And especially as a woman, that to me, that screams misogyny. That screams sexism, because if you just reduce someone down to only the offspring that they can provide, and if anyone can do anything that they want to you, what kind of a life is that? So, and I understand people are going to be very upset about that. I'm not saying that you don't have to agree with me. I'm not going to be angry or upset or whatever. I was mainly just surprised at how very loud people were about it. I did also see a bad faith argument where somebody brought up, well, drag queen story hour is safer for kids than kids in the church because kids in the church get abused by Christian leaders. Okay, so here's my response to that. They're looking at the church as an institution rather than the church as in the people of God. Obviously, not everybody in the church is actually a Christian. True Christians are actually the most chill, most peaceful people that you will ever meet, because we are instructed by Jesus to treat others as we want to be treated. That means that we're not going to go out and hammer you over the head with the Bible and just tell you what's quote unquote wrong with you or whatever. We might share our faith with you, but we're going to do it in a very kind, loving way. Obviously, we do understand if you're not going to see eye to eye with us. We're not going to expect you to change your mind, and we're not going to be unkind to you. Now, there are wolves in sheep's clothing, and this is something that Jesus warns about. There are wolves in sheep's clothing. There are people who pretend to be Christians who come into the church and they do these horrible things. And then you also have cowards who don't want to stand up to these people, which, yes, in some cases can include abuse of children. Now, obviously, I am of the opinion that if a child is being abused, that person needs to be held accountable. You need to get in contact with law enforcement. If you need to do what you need to do to defend that child, then you should, because children are very valuable. They are vulnerable. They should not be exposed to anything like that. No child should ever be abused. And the reason why a lot of people don't like the Drag Queen Story Hour is simply because it is an implicitly sexual activity. And a lot of parents, they just don't want their babies to come home to them and ask them why the man was wearing woman's clothing. It's just something that we don't want to expose our children to, especially if they're at that age. They are not ready for those kinds of conversations. They are not ready at all. And it is very important that we protect our children from exposure to anything of that nature until they hit a certain age where they're able to understand, and you have to explain to them, A, so that they know what's going on with their body so they're not all freaked out, and B, for health reasons. So that's typically my response to that. It's like sexual abuse is not just about somebody touching a kid. It's also about exposing the child to something that they shouldn't see, especially at that age.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you respond. We'll see what that response the following week will be. Go to gracelynxjenkins.com, purchase her book, get an autographed signed copy, and like and share this episode. Appreciate it, Grace.
Awesome. Thank you.
That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show. Take care, guys. We